Todd McMitchin here, Director of Generosity by Lifeway. I want to talk today about the three most common mistakes that I see church leaders make when it comes to the area of finances and generosity and money. Pastors, I want to encourage you that if you'll just take the time this year to focus on these three most common mistakes and turn them around, I promise you're going to see a giving spirit begin, a generous culture begin in your church. Here is common mistake number one: silence on the topic of money. Now, I know it can be uncomfortable for pastors oftentimes to teach on the topic of money, and I'm not going to be advocating more preaching on money. I understand that we're concerned that guests might not come through the door, someone might misperceive that this conversation has something to do with personal income. I get all of that. There are a lot more topics than money that are tied to generosity. Being silent on the topic is not the most helpful thing to your church's culture. Unleash the topic of generosity. Begin by talking about being generous with our heart, our mind, our thoughts, our words, our service, our family. Unleash the topic of generosity. Common mistake number one: silence on the topic of money. Common mistake number two is only talking about money when the church needs it. Now, it's compounded, right? Because if we've been silent on the topic of money, we all know that there are definitely seasons in the year when we need to talk about it. It might be for a missions offering. It might be that budget is behind. It might be a capital campaign. But you can't not talk about finances sometime during the year. So when we rush from the extreme of being silent to now being forced to talk about it, we don't realize this, but it can come off as a fundraising appeal that's very church-centric. We often try to decorate it with vision language, but if we haven't built the proper culture, our people perceive and see right through that. So all the goodwill we thought we were creating by being silent is now completely undone because we've rushed at the topic of money and it's a church-centric financial need or an offering. So mistake number two is only talking about money when the church needs it. Mistake number three: preparing your annual budget on an amount higher than your current year's receipts. It's extremely common for churches to increase their budget spending in future years. And I understand a growth mentality, but we want faith and growth to play itself out in other aspects of ministry development. We really want our financial plan to be conservative, right? A budget is man-made, it's human-made. We enforce those guidelines on ourselves. So when we create a budget for the future year that is higher than previous year's receipts, a couple things will happen immediately. Oftentimes, staff will overspend early on in the fiscal year because the money is there, perceivably, because we're starting out and we haven't spent anything. Number two, giving is going to be behind, and with increased spending, it's going to result in a pressure that the church is not doing well financially. And so now, all year long, you're kind of chasing yourself in terms of managing expenses, managing expectations, managing that financial pressure all year long. So listen, three most common mistakes I see: one, being silent on money; two, only talking about money when the church needs it; three, preparing an annual budget that's in excess of previous year's receipts. I promise, Pastor, I promise, if you will address those three issues this year and grow in your leadership and help your team to grow in their leadership, you will begin an unstoppable culture of generosity. Go unleash giving today.